Yeah! How's it going? How are you all, my beautiful members of the Post-Geek Singularity community? How are you doing today? It's a great day. It's a great day, friends. Captain Marvel opens tonight. A new MCU movie in the lead up to Infinity War, or pardon me, Endgame, and to celebrate National or International Women's Day, which happens tomorrow. So, very exciting day, very exciting day. Thank you all once again for being here. You imagination connoisseurs, you. I have a few, again, I have been both touched and moved and also very intrigued by all the letters people are sending me. And I know that I don't have I should come up with great show topics, but people's letters have been interesting. They're so interesting to me. I figured I would share them with you. And today, I'm going to read two letters. One of which is a long one. I'm going to start with a long one in honor of International Women's Day. This comes from a patron of mine who's Sportsman Patreon and who also is very active in the John Campea show. And I really, really like this letter. I like this letter a lot. And I want to start out and read it to you. This letter comes from Willow Yang. Yes, Willow, I love this letter so much. I thank you for sending it to me, and I've really appreciated all of your support. So all of you, I'm going to read you this letter from Willow Yang, a listener and a supporter and a contributor and a participant here with this. She is very much a member of the Post-Geek Singularity community, and I really appreciate her and her participation. I can't even speak today, but let me read you her letter. This comes from Willow Yang from Canada. I apologize in advance for writing such a long letter. It is difficult for me to condense the 10 plus years of my childhood fandom into something more concise. I wasn't able to catch most of your live chat last night since I had to get up early in the morning for work, but I did hear the viewer emails that you shared. I've got to admit, there are times when your show just makes me feel young. I don't mean young as in feeling youthful and energetic. I mean young as in, what are these people talking about? Was it like that back in the day? I just would like to share with you some stories from my own childhood. I grew up in Vancouver in the 2000s. I don't know whether it's because the schools I went to were predominantly filled with Asian students or because we were a different generation where geeky stuff had already become mainstream, but many people were into gaming, anime and manga. Anime. In elementary school, I used to get into debates with classmates over who'd win in a battle of Pokemon versus Digimon. I always took the Pokemon side just because I liked the show more, but to be honest, Digimon are more powerful. In high school, I got into anime like Naruto, Bleach, Death Note, and D. Gray Man. I also developed an obsession for Chinese martial art and fantasy shows like Lotus Lantern and the Royal Swordsman. My friends and I often fantasized about us learning martial arts, the superpower kind where you can fly and cleave mountains in half, and using our powers to conquer the world and become evil overlords. We did enjoy Western things too. Lord of the Rings are, to this day, my favorite movies of all time. I loved Harry Potter, books more so than the movies, and the Aragon novels. More on that later. We didn't get into a lot of science fiction or comic books. However, I never saw the original Star Trek. In fact, the first time I heard about the show was in creative writing class, where one audacious student shared with everyone her love for writing / fan fiction, gay shipping, and mentioned how, back in the day, many female Star Trek fans wanted to see Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock get it on. I had no idea who these characters were, and quite honestly, I thought the names Kirk and Spock sounded stupid. I did know about Star Wars, though, the prequel, which I actually did enjoy, but when I saw the original movies, I thought it was just cheesy with lame fight choreography and bad special effects. Uh-oh, Willow. I've been spoiled by Lord of the Rings. There was one person I knew in high school who was a true OG geek, an original geek, even though he was the same age as me. He was a Filipino boy named John, and he was a massive fan of the original Star Wars and was in denial of the existence of the prequels. I remember getting into an argument with him once. It was during an English class, and John had volunteered to read an essay he had written, which turned out to be 10 minutes of him condemning the Aragon book series for being a blatant ripoff of A New Hope. While I have come to understand his point of view, If you break the plot of Aragon down, it's clearly Star Wars, just with dragons and magic instead of lightsabers and the Force. At the time, this vicious attack on something I loved did not go over well with me or my friends. So I confronted John after class. I don't remember the exact words I said, but I pretty much told him that the original Star Wars was crap and that he was an idiot for liking them. He was pretty horrified and said he needed to lie down. In my defense, I was 14, not the most mature or eloquent time of my life, and I had no idea what a beloved property Star Wars was. In spite of this altercation, John and I remained pals throughout high school. At the very least, we both agreed that Death Note ended after episode 25. I wish I could tell you more about video games, comics, creative writing, and my eternal struggle with my parents, who saw my geeky interests as a waste of precious time that I should be spending on my homework. But this letter is already long enough as it is. I will leave off just saying that I really appreciate both you and John, and I'm talking about Campia here, for fostering an environment where different opinions and points of view are welcome. I will never belittle anyone again for liking something that I don't. I am, after all, in the minority right now for enjoying the Star Wars prequels more than the originals. I'm also one of the few viewers of your show who like the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies. I've recently started watching Discovery, and I have to say, I'm really digging the show. Maybe when I get around to seeing the original Star Trek series, I'll have a better understanding of your viewpoint. Maybe it'll end up being just like Star Wars all over again. It doesn't matter. We may be very different people with different experiences, tastes, and views, but isn't that the point of being an independently thinking individual? Thank you for all of your content and the community that you've created. I feel very fortunate to be a part of it. Come on. How great is that letter? Thank you very much, Willow. That is exactly, this letter absolutely nails what the Post-Geek Singularity community is all about. And I very much appreciate it. I love hearing also from younger viewers that are younger than my original geek self, because it does give me, it delights me to no end to know that you are engaging in Pokemon versus Digimon debates. And that while you like Pokemon better, you can concede that Digimon were probably more powerful. See, again, I don't understand why we can't be having these discussions. You can tell me you like the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies, and I think that's great. The fact that you like Discovery, I think that's great too. And the fact that you might go back and watch Kirk and Spock in the original Star Trek show, that's great, but maybe you'll just read slash fiction. One never knows. Nothing wrong with slash fiction either. I read a lot of it as a kid. I thought it was very interesting. I didn't quite, I had a couple, actually I still have a couple of lavishly illustrated slash fiction books written by women, and the drawings are very lovingly rendered, and they of course depict a lot of loving. So anyway, I thank you for your letter, Willow, and I really appreciate your continued support here in both the chats and being on my Patreon page. Now, here's another email that I received. Now, I'm not. This person has asked me not to use their name. I'm just going to call this person Mr. Ness. And he asked me. He wrote a lot about his background that I'm not going to read either. But I think there's some things that are pertinent to his letter. One, he says he's a black guy who grew up in Chicago, and he grew up with hip hop pumping through his veins, and his parents were school teachers. And he really traversed the wide gamut of people that he knew. He knew everybody from the nerds and the jocks to the gangbangers, and he lived in a multi-ethnic neighborhood, and he was pretty much a cultural sponge. I think that's important to know, but I'm not going to read everything that he said. Now, here's his question. Mr. Ness writes, with the increased awareness and attempts of diversity from studios, I decided that a career in screenwriting might actually be viable for me. Granted, I write pulp noir and genre scripts. I'm not exactly expecting to set Hollywood on fire. I bring this up because I have a cultural question that you might be able to answer. In YouTube Live Chat 56, you said, the studios own the IPs and their sole motivation is to make money, and they get to pick and choose who they deem worthy to work with. With that in mind, and seeing Hollywood's attempt at diversification, in your opinion, is there any hope of people of color and females being able to create our own Hollywood characters and stories rooted in our culture? Or will we be doomed to wait for the machine to deem us worthy of being assimilated into their existing IPs with a race or a gender swap? Should I spend my energy and efforts attempting to get my work published outside of Hollywood in hopes that a Hollywood or a streaming service buys me out decades later if successful? Or is resistance futile? I grew up on James Bond movies and I would love to write one. But if I had to write a black James Bond movie, I'd prefer to write a black spy flick with roots in my own culture. I wouldn't want to write a black Superman movie. I'd prefer to do something original like what Brightburn is doing, or just a traditional Superman movie. That's just my opinion, as I can't speak for all black artists. To my fellow imagination connoisseurs, if Michael B. Jordan is Superman, or Idris Elba is James Bond, if you agree with those casting decisions or not, what's the alternative for non-white actors who pack theaters when Hollywood isn't buying new IPs? And most of the popular old IPs that they do own feature white males in the starring roles and have already been remade 3+ times. Thank you again, RMB, and my Post-Geek Singularity community. You guys rock. Well, first of all, Mr. Ness, and I'm going to call you Mr. Ness because I'm not using your name. I think this is an extremely important letter. I think your points are well taken, but let me just say this. Do not stop writing. Do not stop dreaming. Do not stop being an artist. Do not wait for anyone. You know, as I've said before, we live in a world where the sands of our culture are rapidly shifting, sometimes on a weekly, daily, even moment-to-moment basis. And what's happening in the world today is, look, the same technology that allows me to sit here and talk to all of you right now is allowing people from all walks of life, from all experiences, for every ethnic minority, every religious group, every sexuality. We now have the tools with which we can create anything we want. And we have the ability to share our creations worldwide, globally. And I think, look, Hollywood is always looking, and the entertainment business is always looking. If you look at any independent filmmaker, I mean, just the independent filmmaker explosion of the 80s, you had people like Steven Soderbergh, you had Spike Lee. You know, where would Spike Lee be if she didn't make She's Gotta Have It? You know, I mean, he wouldn't have won his Oscar this year. And what made Spike Lee is his unique perspective as a black artist, as a black man telling black stories about the black community that hadn't been told yet. And he broke through. And I mean, I love She's Gotta Have It was so alien to me, like when I was watching it, but I loved it. I loved it because it was about a culture I was never going to be a part of. And it was a story that I was never going to tell myself, but I loved watching it. And I loved seeing how, you know, he does She's Gotta Have It, then he does School Days, and then of course, Do the Right Thing, and then on and on and on. And we all want new stories. Everybody likes to watch a story about a world that they don't know. And I think, look, what you're saying, what your idea of making a spy story with its roots in the black community, what a great idea. When I read that in your letter, I'm like, when I first read that, I'm like, I want to see that movie. You know, not some, what would that be? You know, I was talking about the other day that if you did a black James Bond, how would his being black figure into him being a spy? That's what makes it all interesting. I mean, the problem with, I think, the James Bond movies now is, in a way, they're sort of bleeding the British out of Bond. I mean, that's one of the things I loved about the James Bond movies is Bond was this British character, you know, and all the jokes. That's just the RAF, sir. You know, it's like in Moonraker when the pilots are flying the Moonraker shuttle. I loved all that. And look, I think you're right. I think the idea that taking characters, you as a black man, say you don't want to see a black Superman or a black James Bond. And I tend to agree with you. I think that those characters, if you were to do a gender swap, or you were to do a a color swap, a racial swap between those kind of characters, it can be fun, but it'll only ever be seen as some kind of a stunt. I mean, I would much rather see new characters. I mean, I want to see your black spy who has roots in the black communities. Maybe he came from the South Side of Chicago, and that his upbringing is what gives him his unique or her unique edge. I think that anybody, any of you out there who want to participate in the creative community, do not let anything stop you. Nothing, nothing, nothing. Because everybody that becomes a creator of any kind is because it's because they did it. They actually did it. And look, sure, luck and talent is a big part of it. I mean, if you're not a talented artist and you desperately want to become a comic book artist, I would say you've got to know whether or not you actually have the talent to do these things. But if you say don't, like, I am not a good artist. I can't draw. I've always admired people who draw. I would love to have drawn, but I don't know how to draw. And I know that no matter how much I work at it, no matter how many classes I take, no matter what I do, I'm never going to be Bill Sienkiewicz or Howard Chaykin or George Perez. I'm just never going to be those people. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with knowing that I'm supremely untalented as an artist. So I do other things. My creative outlets are filmmaking. Before I got on this chat, for instance, I was on a conference call with my post house that is doing the color timing, the color grading for Tango Shalom. We're going to do the final color grade, and that's more in my wheelhouse. I think I'm a talented post supervisor and certainly a talented editor. Maybe not as talented as, say, Verna Fields, but I'm constantly working at it, and everything that I do editorially I feel is better than the thing I've done before. Tango Shalom being the pinnacle of my abilities as a feature film editor, and I'm very excited about it. So, when I became an editor, I'll tell you a story. I'd always edited. I started editing Super 8 films when I was a kid, literally cutting and taping film together. And then with videotape, I was editing rudimentary video. And then as I got into college, I started to edit more and more films using video. And then my first feature film, which was the recut of Arcade, I just said to my friend Dan Schweiger, can we re-edit this? And it's just a question of, as Kirk said, we learn by doing, as Kirk said to Lieutenant Saavik in Star Trek 2. So here's the thing. If you feel that you've been marginalized, or you're a minority, or you're a woman, a person, LGBTQ, whatever you are, if you feel that you're not qualified, or it's such a long, don't listen to that voice, because what makes all this stuff great is the originality that your voice, and only your voice, can bring to whatever story it is you're going to tell. So I cannot recommend highly enough that it does not matter who you are, or where you come from, or what color you are, or whatever your sexuality is, or whether you're a woman, a man, or somewhere in between. Don't stop creating. Don't stop making things. And Hollywood's going to need people to exploit forever. And now, whatever you're creating, you can distribute it yourself if you want to do that. Look, I'm here talking to you guys now. I mean, I realize that I'm always one step away from the Poe house. So, talking on YouTube is something I do to augment my exposure, and augment maybe my income, and also just to augment my fun. But I also have my other things that I'm interested in doing, and I never stop doing those things. Sometimes, I've got projects I've been working on for 20 years that have yet to reach fruition, and I'm pushing every day to push these projects forward. So I cannot say to you people enough: don't let anybody ever tell you cannot do something. It's up to you to do it. And yes, man, it's a long road. I'm not going to lie. And working in the film business sucks. You're dealing with obstacles I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. But you must persevere. If it's something you really want to do, you've got to pursue it. And, I believe in the diversification of dreams. I really do. I think that I usually cling to 5 or 6 or 20. I've got a number of dreams that I'm working on at the same time. Now, you just got to keep pushing and you can't give up. Look, there are dreams that I might have that I know that I'm never going to achieve. And you have to be realistic about what you can achieve. Like, I want to be an astronaut. I still want to be an astronaut. Uh, I don't think I'm ever going to be one. However, look at what's happened in the last 20 years. Look what's been happening in the last 2 years. Look at Blue Origin. Look at Virgin Galactic, and look at SpaceX. I might not be an astronaut by profession, but I might one day realize my dream of going out into space. It's coming. You never know. You just never know. You're one day away from achieving something, and I think that every single person needs to hang on to that. And it was great. These two letters, Mr. Ness's letter and Willow's letter, proves. I mean, they're both letters from people. Willow comes from the Chinese community. She had to deal with her parents telling her that her geeky interests, like, what are you going to do with those? How are you going to? I'm familiar with what it's like to have a Chinese mom, and I know what that's like. I don't personally have a Chinese mother, but a very, very good friend of mine has a Chinese mother, and I love her to death. I love both of them to death, actually. But it's I know what it's like, and how to explain. My parents were luckily supportive, and Mr. Ness talking about growing up in his community, not his geeky interests and discovering us. He actually said something that was interesting. He was overseas when he found John Schnepp and Collider Heroes, and that sort of inspired him, which made me feel pretty good. But I think the strength that people have is their own unique points of view. That's what they have to offer the world, because, as I'm always saying, as I sign off, the only person that knows how you are experiencing the world is you. And it's that unique perspective that you can bring to whatever it is you're doing, whether you're an artist, whether you want to be a storyteller of any kind. I mean, remember, that's what you have to offer the world, is basically yourself and how you think and what you believe in and how those things are unique to you. And man, that's important. That's important. And there's more. I've said this before. Everybody's talking about, well, we need more diversity. There is more diversity now than there has been at any time in the entertainment business. I mean, does that mean it can't get better? Of course it does. We have to do better. But there's more opportunities now for everybody. One of my oldest friends in the world, Eric Wallace. He's a black dude, Army brat, grew up all over the world. He's working on The Flash now. When I met him 25 years ago, we were making, I got 2 of our short films sold on this home video label. And Eric Wallace persevered. He used to he worked in development. He worked his way up. And now he's a writer, producer on The Flash. As a matter of fact, he used to talk about things like King Shark. I mean, now King Shark and Gorilla Grodd are going to throw down on The Flash that Eric Wallace works on. I mean, I have seen in my life, I've seen so many inspiring stories, and so many of my friends have inspired me to continue working, that you can't give up. It doesn't matter what color you are. It doesn't matter what you look like or what your belief system is. It just doesn't matter. What matters is you do great work. And I'm not saying that everybody has, there's still rampant prejudice and massive douchebaggery in Hollywood, as evidenced by recently breaking stories about how certain heads of studios were running off around behind their wife's back and hooking up with a text-happy actress. Never a good look. But I'm just saying, there's all kinds of weird shenanigans we all have to deal with. I guarantee you this. Everybody has to deal with shenanigans in the entertainment business. Sometimes these shenanigans are for good and they work in your favor. Most of the time, they're really annoying and they stop work from getting done. But anyway, I can't encourage people enough to never stop. And yes, it's harder than ever probably to get involved in giant studio franchise filmmaking. But you know what? I mean, I see people like Ari Aster, who came out of AFI. He made Hereditary, and he's got his new cult movie coming out. Look it up. It's Somerville, or I want to say Somerville. But the trailer dropped yesterday, and it looks bananas and bonkers and awesome. So, you guys, don't give up. Like Kate Bush said, don't give up, because you have friends. You've got friends. You've got people that are on your side. Just go make it happen. It might take 20 years. I mean, hell, man, I'm middle-aged. I'm still trying to make independent movies. I've never broken through really commercially. I've made some certain things that have done well, but still massive commercial success eludes me. But I'm still out there swinging, and you should be too. So don't give up and don't stop. Remember what Journey said. Don't stop believing. Factual Opinion asks, what up, Rob? Do you think Game of Thrones could end with a compromise between Westeros and the White Walkers, or will it end the same old, same old? I got to tell you, I don't think you can compromise with the White Walkers. I kind of think of them as a force of nature. I think we're going to get an unexpected ending. I think we don't quite know what's up with the White Walkers. You know, whether the knights, the king is Bran Stark or not, I don't know. But I think it's not going to be as easy. When is Game of Thrones ever that easy? I think it's going to end in a very interesting, perhaps unexpected way. I certainly don't think it's going to end with the same old, same old. But who knows? I could be wrong. One never does know exactly. Willow Yang. Hello, Willow. Oh, thank you for asking me this question. Willow asks, would you like to take a moment to share your excitement for the Gundam movie that's being developed since you missed out on John's show? For those of you who don't know, for some reason, I was kicked out of John's live stream by no fault of my own this time. I didn't touch any of my keyboard. I just was frozen out. I don't know why. Okay. As many of you know, I am a huge, huge fan of the Japanese animated series Mobile Suit Gundam. Specifically the Universal Century continuity, but I like all Gundam, even the stupid Gundam shows like Gundam Fighters. I know, pardon me, not stupid. There are Gundam shows that I appreciate less than others. But I am deliriously excited that Brian K. Vaughan, the great Brian K. Vaughan, who is a TV writer now, but he's a great comic writer. He created things like Y the Last Man. He has been tapped by Legendary Pictures, who made Pacific Rim, my beloved Pacific Rim, and somehow they made a deal with Sunrise. I never thought this was going to happen because making deals with Japanese companies for their IPs is very difficult. But Legendary, considering, I guess, because they're doing the Godzilla films, they know how to navigate those waters, and their Chinese partners probably help them out. But man, they're going to make a Mobile Suit Gundam movie, and I cannot wait. I cannot wait for this. It's going to be, it's going to be Universal Century. You're going to see the traditional RX-78, probably RX-782 Gundam mobile suit in action. I can't wait to see the Principality of Zeon and Char leading the charge, the Red Comet. This is going to be badass. I cannot wait. It's going to be awesome. I can't believe I'm getting a Gundam movie. I tell you, everything I want is happening. It's coming true. I'm very, very, very excited. I cannot wait for this, and I can't believe I couldn't talk about this on the John Campy show. The Popcast dropped in a $20 super chat. He says, she says, the Popcast. Here's $20 for that first SpaceX flight. Thank you, man. You know what? I'm gonna do that. I'm going to start a savings account with this $20 or whatever I get after Google takes their cut. I'm going to open an account. I'm going to use this. I'm going to go to the bank and I'm going to open my SpaceX flight, or I'll call it something generic because it might not be SpaceX. I'm going to do that. I'm actually going to make a live video. I'm going to go into the bank and I'm like, I want to make an adjunct to my currently existing bank account. I'm going to drop this money in and I'm going to open an account for my first space flight. How fun will that be? I'm really going to do that, by the way. I think that'd be hilarious. Electric Barbarella. Hopefully you're as much of a Duran Duran fan as I am. Electric Barbarella 27 says, the swapping reminds me of the X-Men annual where Mojo made the X-Babies and did all the gimmicks like X-Men as women or animals. Totally. That's a great analogy. Mojo from the Mojoverse. I don't know if you know that's a character in the X-Men comic books. I like that character. But the Mojoverse is where Longshot came from, right? Spiral and all that. I think. I don't know if I'm right about that. But Magic K asks, when will you do a Captain Marvel review? I'm doing a spoiler review with John Campia on Monday. So that's when I will be talking about that. I'm looking forward to it. I see it actually tomorrow night in the Cinerama Dome. I was going to see it tonight, but I can't. because I'm doing something Schmodown related. So yes, but I will be doing that with John. And let's see what we got down here. David Cabrera says, "Hi Rob, faithful connoisseur here. I heard you mention Pen 15 yesterday. Started watching it and got to episode 3. Oh my god, thanks for the warning." If you guys haven't watched Pen 15 on Hulu, it's basically a show where two 30-year-old women are playing their versions of their middle school, their teenage selves, their 13-year-old selves, as if they're 13. And in the third episode, one of the girls discovers the joys of masturbation, and she becomes a masturbation addict. And I tell you, we live in times where we can address any subject, but Pen 15 is pretty bonkers. And if you're a 30-year-old female, I've been told, Ashley on the John Campy show says it's an incredibly nostalgic show for her and her friends. And wow is all I can say. Wait till you get to episode 3. Yeah. Let's see. What do we got here? Prepper James says, Lucas should have made a sequel to Return of the Jedi first and did the prequels after. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because the EU, when they brought back Star Wars in the early 90s, they brought it back. They did a slow ramping up of the Star Wars franchise. It kind of disappeared. And in the early 90s, you had Timothy Zahn had written his Thrawn trilogy, his Heir to the Empire trilogy, and Dark Horse Comics published what I love, the Dark Empire series. And both of those things came out in the same year. And it was kind of this slow re-injection of Star Wars into the pop culture. And then, of course, in the mid-90s, we've got the Shadows of the Empire multimedia event with that great, I think it was N64, right? The great Shadows of the Empire game that had a tie-in novel and other things. And it was very shrewd what they did. But, all of those dealt with Luke, Leia, and Han and their offspring, and I loved all that stuff. I mean, that's what Star Wars really is. It's really, and then of course you've got the Knights of the Old Republic and all that. But again, if I had done these new trilogies, I would have put Han, Luke, and Leia at the forefront and introduced these new characters slowly as part of the story, and then I would have set them up for the fourth trilogy. But that's just me. So yeah, I would have gone that way. Danny Pearson's here. He says, hello everyone. Hello Rob. I love Star Trek in general and Star Wars in general equally. I love DC Superman and Batman included, and Marvel equally. I love Pokemon and Digimon equally. I'm with you, man. I grew up, I didn't delineate. Star Trek and Star Wars were totally different things to me. And they tickled different parts of my fancies. And I would never think that you would have one over the other. Like, why would you do that? That doesn't make sense. That's such a weird thing. And I still don't get it. I don't get why it's like nobody goes Star Wars or The Expanse. No one ever went Star Wars, The X-Files, man. I mean, I don't get it. That's a new thing. Everyone wants to pit everything against everything else. And I love them equally. I never delineated. I will admit, when I was a kid, I did not like the Avengers as much as I liked the Justice League. But that was because I was a child. I grew up watching Super Friends. And when I would draw with whatever modicum of small talent I had, I would always start drawing figures of superheroes with the emblems on their chests. And DC characters were much more conducive to that. Flash, Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, Batman, they were easier to draw than a lot of the Marvel characters, because Spider-Man had a spider on his chest, and Captain America had a star on his chest, but a lot of the other characters didn't. It's not like Vision had a big V on his chest. Wonder Man later famously had a big W on him, but it wasn't. It was hard. But yeah, I've always liked them. I as I got more back into Marvel comics, I like it all equally. I don't delineate. I like all kinds of things. I don't understand why, if you like one, you can't like the other. Alexander Wilson says, Which one comes first? A good Justice League movie or an NBA basketball team coming back to Seattle? I think an NBA basketball team coming back to Seattle, frankly. I can't believe, Seattle won the World Championships, the NBA Finals in 1978-79 with downtown Freddie Brown and Slick Watts and Jack Sikma, those guys. It's too long. We haven't had a basketball team for so long in Seattle. It's lame. It's really lame. And I think, but I do think we'll probably get a basketball team before there's another Justice League movie. You never know. You never know. Matthew Koss asks, hey, Rob, love the show. I'm currently a student teaching at a high school, and I will be doing my first lesson tomorrow. Wow, dude. Excited, but kind of nervous. Look, you can be nervous, but you know what? I would say to you, you probably have this. Even though you're student teaching and it's going to be your first class tomorrow, you're prepared, you're ready to go. And look, let me tell you what my first freelance editing job. I was always working for a company. I took on a freelance editing job that was just a little above my pay grade. I just learned the Avid, and I didn't know the software intimately yet, and I took this job because it was very well paying, and it was a little beyond my grasp at the time, but I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna do this. And I did, and it worked out great. The job turned out wonderful. It was actually a public service announcement for the Oneida Nation, the Oneida Nation, the people of the Standing Stone. And it was a public service announcement. It was only a minute long, and it won this award. And it was produced by this wonderful woman named Baba Cooper, who passed away not long ago. I'm going to transfer. I'll put that up on my website. Robbie Robertson of the band, the band that Martin Scorsese, the movie The Last Waltz was about. He came and did the voiceover for the spot. We used his music, and it was incredible. So, dude, you got this. Come on, Matthew. Buck up. You're gonna kill it. You're gonna crush it tomorrow, and you don't have anything to fear from high school students aside from their apathy and non-interest in what you have to say. But you, my friend, I'm sure are going to be a riveting, scintillating teacher, and you're going to shape the minds of our young. And it's an important job. Don't fuck it up. Topher Rock says, could you see Endgame starting with Ant-Man getting out of the quantum realm? Seems like a tough task for Scott Lang, or will they skip that entirely? I don't know, man. I think however Scott Lang gets out of the quantum realm will have something to do with Endgame. I think you're going to see something big happen with that. I don't know what it is, but I think it'd be cool. Victor Acosta says the Thrawn trilogy would have been an awesome way to continue Star Wars, a missed opportunity if there ever was one. Yeah, I didn't think the Thrawn trilogy was perfect, but it was pretty damn good, and it was really interesting. And again, why they don't go back to books? That look, authors spend a long time thinking about these stories. They're not tossing these things off. And if I was ever working on one of these big franchise properties, man, I would go back and I would look into the novels and the things that exist. I mean, if you haven't read the first Dark Horse Alien versus Predator comic, it was great. It would have made a great movie. So you never know. I mean, it was great. Alexander Wilson asks, there's a new NHL expansion team coming to Seattle at the Key Arena in 2021. Also, what is your favorite fictional story that takes place in Seattle? Okay. You know what my favorite fictional story that takes place in Seattle is? So in the 70s, there was 2 TV movies about a reporter played by Darren McGavin named Carl Kolchak. And they made it into a 1-season series called Kolchak the Night Stalker. And there is before the series, there were 2 TV movies that Kino Lorber just released on home video. The Night Stalker and the Night Strangler. And the Night Strangler takes place famously, some of it takes place famously in Seattle's underground city. No lie, that's probably my favorite thing that ever takes place. My favorite fictional story that took place in Seattle. I loved it. and also the parallax view, which is both funny enough, another inspiration for the X-Files. Alan Pakula's early 70s paranoid political thriller, The Parallax View, starring Warren Beatty, also opens with a shooting on top of the Space Needle, and it's pretty dope. And it's not out on Blu-ray, but you can find the DVD, which I have, and it's pretty good. I really liked it. So those are two things. But if you guys haven't ever seen the Kolchak movies, The Night Strangler and The Night Stalker, you got to watch them. I mean, the TV show is pretty goofy, but Carl Kolchak, it's vampires and zombies and all kind of werewolves, all kinds of things. And and Kolchak, Darren McGavin's character was kind of brought back as a thinly veiled version of his character, actually in an X-Files episode. So, yeah, it's true. Stubble McShave says, I'm almost finished with the first pass of the first book that I've ever written. Wow, dude, congratulations. Writing a novel is something I've always dreamed of doing, but man, that takes perseverance. Congratulations to you. That's good to have. That's good to hear. Now there's some obvious problems with some aspects of the world building. I'll just have to try and fix it in revisions. That's part of the process, man. You know, you can't think that you're going to create magic first time out of the gate. Any great writer will tell you one of the hardest things about writing is rewriting and fixing what you've written. You know, as a screenwriter myself, when you first write your first screenplay and you print it out, you know, you have it and there's weight in your hand and it's like done. There's a very it's almost like being ensorcelled by the fact that you actually finished it, that you've actually got, here's 100 or 120 pages of written material. I made this, and you're elated and you get to feel the weight. And then you go back in and you start reading it. By page 3, you're disgusted and you realize, oh boy, back to the drawing board. But you know, that's what writing's all about. And it's part of the process. And you know, how look at the fact you've already laid it out. You already now know you have a much clearer view of your story and your characters and your world building. And now, Stubble, get back in and start doing the heavy lifting. Really get in there and work it out. But congratulations to you for writing a book. Dude, I wish I could do that. I'd love to have written a book. How dope is that? Congratulations to you, sir. I think that's a great thing that you've done. Evan Newman says, Crixus Maximus, damn right, but Rome was the forerunner to Game of Thrones. Lots of those early short HBO series paved the way for what we have today. Carnival, Deadwood, and The Wire. Evan, you're right about that. I mean, I think that those 2-season shows, I think Deadwood was only 2 seasons and Rome was only 2 seasons. And I think also, well, The Wire was 5 seasons. But yeah, these shorter seasons, HBO was learning and they were building. And HBO has been an incredible network to watch them build their original series over the years. I mean, I remember I used to be a big fan of the series Dream On with the character of Martin Tupper. And I love that show. He always flashed back to old TV shows, and that's how he learned his life. And they always had topless girls. But that was an early show. Then, you know, you had Sex and the City, and then many other HBO shows built up to what we're getting today. And now everything, I mean, from True Detective to Game of Thrones to The Night Of, I mean, there's just incredible work being done on HBO. And they said they had to start somewhere. You know, they built up from the early 80s since their inception, and they've done that. Scott Dolson says, I too have a screenplay project I've been working on for a couple of years. Not sure what will ever happen with it, but it does keep the creative juices flowing. Scott, you know what? Finish it. Finish your script. Enter it into a few screenplay competitions. You never know. You never know. But even if nothing happens with your screenplay, finish it and get it to be the best it can be. And then you can say you did it and send it out. You never know what's going to happen. You just never know. You know, if there's one truism, that I've discovered in Hollywood, it's that work begets work. When you're working on something, that's how people find what you've done. And almost every single thing I've ever done in Hollywood has led to something else. And sometimes randomly, you know, you never know when you're going to find out. Like, I'll give you an example. For instance, on this very show, when I went and I videotaped, I digitally captured Gilbert and myself at Lucky Baldwin's over the weekend. And then I think on Monday, somebody asked me, whether I drank, or maybe over the weekend, someone on the show asked me, do I drink the whiskey or the beer first? And I mentioned that I really liked to pair Jameson with Allagash White. I'm a real big fan of beers from the Allagash Company. Now, I don't know anyone from the Allagash Brewing Company. I was not told to say Allagash on this show, but I did. Lo and behold, yesterday I was contacted from somebody who's a beer rep for the Allagash Brewing Company that's based in Maine, who is here in Southern California, and they expressed their thanks for me talking about their product, and they were happy to hear that I like their product. And so we had an email back and forth, and I said, well, I've there's other products, like they have a really interesting craft line, and they made this black vanilla beer. I like dark stout beer. When I was in New Zealand working on Chronicles of Narnia and on Lord of the Rings, I got totally addicted to this company, Monteith. Monteith's is a brewing company in New Zealand, and they made Monteith's Black, which was this stout chocolatey beer. And Allagash makes a beer like that as well, and I've never had it. So this guy contacts me, and he says, well, I'd love to send you like an Allagash beer care package, and I'll include these things that we talked about. I'm like, really? I mean, how great is that? Now, if I hadn't randomly, first of all, someone hadn't asked me on the show about that beer, I don't think I would have ever said. Maybe if I would have been doing a rip with Rob, because I think I drank Allagash beer with Jameson on one of my rip with Robs. I think the last one I did. And you just never know. So suddenly I'm going to get a guy sending me from Allagash Brewing Company. He's going to send me an Allagash care package, and I'm going to get to try this Allagash beer that I've wanted to try and I've never been able to try, or just I've never found it in a liquor store to buy it, or I always forget. But that came as a result of just randomly mentioning beer. So you never know. Like, same thing is true of, like, I made this short film with Peter Billingsley. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. It won a Golden Scroll Award of Merit from the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror Films. And then I came across, I think it was an ad. I want to say it might have been in Film Threat magazine or something, or I don't know how somebody said, or I found, like, we're looking for short films. So my friend Eric Wallace, who I talked about earlier, who's a producer on The Flash, well, he had made a film called Dark Faith, and I had made the movie with Peter Billingsley, The Sacred Fire. And so I just sent our movies in, and lo and behold, they got picked up for distribution, and they came out as part of a 4-film compilation called Midnight Follies. And this was in the early 90s. So you just never know. So I would suggest finishing the screenplay, get it done, send it to festivals, send it to competitions, screenplay competitions, because you never know. But you know what I do know? If you don't finish it and you never send it out, nothing will happen. So you just never know. You never know what's going to happen. And I am a big proponent of writer B.L. Alley, who's always here. He wrote a book, sent it to me, and he's been sending it out. And he's just is getting a new cover put on it. And so I know him. Oh, here's a question I love. Dave Parker is here. My man Dave Parker asks, he says, thoughts on the Don Winslow Cartel trilogy becoming an FX show. As many people might know, I am a huge fan of author Don Winslow. I go back and forth with him on Twitter all the time. He has sent me his books in galley form so I can look. Here's another example. I didn't know Don Winslow. I just started randomly tweeting about his books because I always like to tweet about authors' books that I like. Jonathan Mayberry, same thing. Not when their books came out, just I randomly said I started talking about Don Winslow's books, and he started writing me back on Twitter. And then he sent me his last book, The Force, which is about corrupt cops in New York. That was fucking great. If you want to read a great book that's dark, read Don Winslow's The Force. It's great. But Don Winslow's new book came out last week, The Border, which is I call it the Return of the King of his drug cartel books, The Power of the Dog, which he wrote a while ago, over a decade ago. Then it's sequel, The Cartel, and now his new book, The Border. So it's this trilogy about Mexican drug cartels in Mexico, and also obviously the American border, was just announced. Don announced it on Twitter today that FX is developing the those books is now a TV series. There was talk that they were going to make movies, but as a TV series, bring it on, man. I think that's great. So my man Dave Parker, of course, directed The Hills Run Red, and I'm going to migrate over something really interesting. When I first put these on YouTube a long time ago, YouTube didn't allow long form videos like this. It was short. But what was really interesting, if you want to hear, the first Robservations live chat was with Dave, and we talked about The Hills Run Red and how we got it made. And what Dave had done is he first created an animatic. We made a teaser trailer, a proof of concept teaser trailer, and he first made an animatic of that teaser trailer, and then we filmed the teaser trailer. So I'm going to put that up probably today on the Burnettwork. So check that out. That's how we were able to get The Hills Run Red made. It was because of that initial, Dave showed his vision for the movie. So we did this teaser trailer, and it was the script that David Scow wrote, and also Dave's vision for both Babyface, the psycho killer. Still, in my mind, if I do say so myself, and I know it's self-serving, but I still think Dave Parker's vision and what he brought to the screen in terms of what Babyface became is still one of the great iconic serial killers in motion picture history. Now, yeah, I produced that movie, but I'm happy to take credit for bringing to life Dave's vision of one of the greatest psycho killers in the pantheon of all cinematic horror. So check that out. Let's see. Victor Acosta says, here's hoping that mess with Sujihara and his actress fling doesn't affect the progress that the DCEU is making. Would hate to see all of that lost over some stupid decision made by a horn dog exec. Yeah, but you know what? These were two people this was consensual. They went into it with their eyes open. And to me, it really just goes to show you why dating actresses is really never really a good idea. No offense to all the actresses out there, but yeah, if you want to read something really interesting about Hollywood, read yesterday's Hollywood Reporter article about Kevin Sujihara and everything that went down. It's very interesting. CW said Mark Lurseth and Pigs Could Fly. Listen, the Bond flicks before Craig featured one character that all referenced the tragedy of their one marriage. Craig is a reboot, period. Yeah, I mean, Craig is a reboot. I mean, look, we see James Bond in Casino Royale becoming a 00. But I kind of like that. Look, the James Bond movies, the continuity has been loose. They share kind of like, they're more inspired by one another. I mean, if you look at On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which stars George Lazenby and Diana Rigg famously, spoiler alert, Diana Rigg marries James Bond and gets gunned down at the end of the movie by Blofeld. What happens in the very next James Bond movie? Well, Sean Connery comes back to the franchise in Diamonds Are Forever looking for Blofeld. It's not the same actor. Blofeld's not played by the same actor. And there's no continuity at all. But you assume that in Diamonds Are Forever, the Sean Connery incarnation of James Bond was also married and his wife was also gunned down. So the continuity has always been fast and loose. I mean, how is Judi Dench's M, who is introduced in GoldenEye, how is she also M in Casino Royale when James Bond is just becoming James Bond? So it doesn't really matter. I mean, the continuity in James Bond movies has never really bothered me. I've always seen each movie is kind of in a way a soft reboot, kind of. Not the Craig movies, though. The Craig movies are direct continuations of each other, which is interesting. That was a first for the Bond franchise. I didn't see the first part of your question, CW, so I just saw the one I read. So that's what I asked. That's what I answered. Helsing 7747 says, I just wanted to say that people can't stop complaining about Rey because she's a Mary Sue, but Luke was a Mary Sue as well. Well, I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't think Luke is a Mary Sue. I mean, Luke, remember, he was already a good pilot. He bullseyed Womp Rats in his T-16 back home, so he was a pilot. He talks about it. We see his Skyhopper in the garage in Star Wars. I think Rey just could do anything that they wanted her to do, whereas Luke, I mean, he learns the Force and everything, but look, he was Force sensitive already. He just didn't know it. But, you know, I don't know. I don't think, see, the true meaning of a Mary Sue is that a Mary Sue character was created to sort of supplant your other main characters. And Luke is a main character of Star Wars, and you watch his journey. I mean, look, and he's certainly not, I mean, even when he gets to Empire, he doesn't listen to what anybody's saying. He gets his ass handed to him by Vader, you know, and he gets his arm chopped off. You know, it's different. I don't think Luke was really a Mary Sue. Apple Crow says, I've been debating if we're better off not having the worst parts of the EU or having the Force Awakens. As bad as the EU got in places, the greatest parts of it far outweigh how tame and vapid the Force Awakens is. You'll get no argument from me, Apple Crow. I was tremendously disappointed by the Force Awakens. I was. I mean, I know people like it, but I was disappointed. I like the actors, but the story that was being told meanders all over the place. I don't want to get into it. I won't rehash it, but I totally agree with you. The EU had some great stuff in it. I mean, that's what you do. You go in and you plunder. All that stuff was owned by Lucasfilm. You plunder what you like and you discard the rest. The problem is, you know, when I hate to say it, but in Hollywood, you don't get rewarded by doing that. What you want to do is you write your own stuff, you control your own stuff, you make a deal for your own stuff, and that's how you get paid. No one was going to go into the EU and plunder, even though I think they should have, because why not? But, you know, that's not how Hollywood works, and it is a bummer. But I agree with you. The EU, there was some great stuff in there, and if I was in charge, I would totally plunder that stuff. CW sends me a chat and says, don't mind my nonsense in the chat. Thanks for everything you do. Hey, look, man, you don't have to worry about being or spewing nonsense in this chat. That's what it's for. You know, we're all part of this. Everybody here is part of the Post-Geek Singularity community. You can spew all the nonsense you want. Just be kind and be nice to people. I mean, we're all here for the same reason. We all love the same stuff. Who isn't going to see Captain Marvel tonight? I mean, I'm not. I'm going tomorrow night because I'm doing some Schmodown stuff tonight. But go, go, go. We're all here, everybody. We're here for one another, so don't worry about that. Koba says, James Bond is a Time Lord. It's clear and simple. I like that idea. James Bond crossing over with Doctor Who. That'd be kind of dope. Where's that IDW comic? You know it's coming. Michael Sternberg, I guess Michael Sternberg, is that how you say it, Michael? Hey, Rob, do you think the Sentry would work as an MCU character or a villain? Always enjoyed the things he's been in. Yeah, the Sentry has been really interesting. For those of you who don't know, he's an incredibly powerful, incredibly dangerous character. He's ripped people apart in the MCU. I really liked the whole storyline where Asgard was relocated to Oklahoma, believe it or not, and Thor and the siege, the storyline, the siege, where it was a siege of Asgard when Norman Osborn led the Dark Avengers and all that. That was great. I loved all that. The Sentry wrecked shop in that, I can tell you. Corky94 says, Luke got knocked out by sand people, almost killed in a bar, almost choked out and drowned in a trash compactor. Rey learned the Force isn't a myth and just Jedi mind tricked her way out of trouble. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I think Rey is much more of a Mary Sue than Luke. Want more backstory? Listen to Star Wars radio drama starring Mark Hamill. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, there was, after Star Wars came out, NPR, National Public Radio, did a audio drama of Star Wars, and it's expanded. It's really interesting. Mark Hamill was in it, and you can get it. I think you can get it on CD. You can probably find it online. It's really good, and I loved it. I remember when it first came out. I loved listening to that. It was a big deal. The Star Wars audio drama and the original audio drama, the original Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I loved. Great stuff. Yeah. Koba says, the fact is changing gender or race doesn't suddenly make the something terrible. Remember, Nick Fury was originally a white guy, but Sam Jackson is amazing as him. Yeah, I think that's an incredible, for those of you who don't know, like if you read the classic Jim Steranko Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or comics, the Nick Fury stuff, he was a white guy. He was famously played by David Hasselhoff on TV. But the Sam Jackson Nick Fury that was introduced in the Ultimates comic line is great. He's great. And I love the fact, how great is it that the Nick Fury that was introduced in the Ultimates was drawn to look like Sam Jackson. And then when the MCU started, they went and got Sam Jackson to play Nick Fury. I mean, come on. How cool is that? I thought it was pretty cool. I really, really, really enjoyed the fact that they did that. So GW427 says, Rob, thanks for the heads up on the 50% off sale at Criterion the other day. I only buy 1 or 2 a year, but I just bought 10 films, all for $200. I'll tell you, I really wanted to bust on that Ingmar Bergman set, the $300 set with the book. I was thinking about doing it, but I have more pressing needs, immediate financial needs here on the home front. So I did not, even though I brought everyone's attention to the 50% off Criterion sale, I did not, in fact, buy anything at that sale. The next one, or the next Barnes & Noble sale, I'm going to buy that Ingmar Bergman set because it's awesome. But I'm glad I will live vicariously through you, GW. What, may I ask, what 10 films did you buy from Criterion? I always want to know what people bought at the Criterion sales. Today's cultural news says, hey, Rob, just stopping in to say hello and hope you're doing well. Did you find another place to finish your film yet? Yes, I did. And when I'm going to, actually, there's 2 different places. And I am going to be doing a video probably maybe next week or the week after for the color timing session. And I will take you guys in. I'll do another live broadcast from inside, and I'll make sure we have a little bit better connection, so it's technically more adept than the last one. Apple Crow says, having seen what the Herbert family did with Dune, I can totally understand how people will inject their own material into an established universe, then act like they're on the same level. Yeah, there's a lot of that going on. I mean, I Brian Herbert, I like the fact that he's continued the Dune novels with Kevin J. Anderson, but they're not. It's not Frank Herbert's Dune. It just isn't. So I understand where you're coming from. I forget who did Yoda. That was Empire. Star Wars is just the first one with more story. Anthony Daniels does C-3PO. Lots of extra scenes. Big's backstory. Leia torture scene. Who I believe did Yoda? If I'm not mistaken, I think John Lithgow actually portrayed Yoda in the Star Wars and the Empire Strikes Back radio drama. I think it was John Lithgow. John Lithgow played Yoda, I think. Pretty sure. Victor Costa says, the thing that bothered me about Force Awakens was that I was always thinking Boyega was the new Jedi thanks to all the marketing, and then they pulled that misdirection at the end. Yeah, I know. I didn't like that either. Adam Gross says, I've always thought of each actor playing Bond as a new agent elevated to the 007 mantle with the code name Bond. This is a theory that I've always loved. And in a way, it's kind of like in my head canon, that the 007 moniker in MI6, when you become a 00, each 001, 002, 003, they've all got a name associated with the number. So if you become the new 007, your code name is James Bond. James Bond's not a real guy. It's just a made-up code name. And I've always really liked that idea. They've never incorporated that. That is not canonical. It's not canonical in the Fleming novels, nor is it canonical in the movies. But I love that idea because then any continuity problems go away. Well, aside from the continuity problem between on the end of On Her Majesty's Secret Service and the beginning of Diamonds Are Forever. But I've always liked that. So, yes, I'm with you there. I think that's cool. Stubble McShave says, I would like to see a new bonkers Bond plot with a villain who wants to rule or kill the world in some weird way. Yeah, I got to tell you, we desperately need – I want to see Daniel Craig go out in a blaze of glory with some crazy cockamamie plot. Like, when Spectre was stealing spacecraft in orbit around the Earth, or when they remade it with Spy Who Loved Me and you had the Liparus that would open up the oil tanker that would open up and was stealing nuclear submarines. Russian nuclear subs, British nuclear subs, American nuclear subs, and you've got a giant oil tanker that has 3 crews of nuclear submarines attacking en masse. I mean, I miss the big battles at the end. You know, the big battle in the volcano at the end of You Only Live Twice. I want to see some big, giant, awesome Bond shit. I know they've gone the Bourne route, but I'm tired of these like let's just go shoot up a house like at the end of Skyfall. No, I want a volcano battle. I want a battle inside the giant oil tanker. I want a battle, you know, like Spy Who Loved Me when they're on the underwater city. I mean, give that to me. I need some fantastical. It's been too long. Give James Bond, give Daniel Craig a fantastical send-off in some epic movie. That's what we need. I hope we're not going to get that, I don't think, but I would love to see that. I mean, we need a big Bond. We need some epic Bondy in action. I think that would be important to see. Donnie Pearson says, what if Disney decides to upgrade the Disney Television Studios name by retiring the ABC and 20th Century Fox related television production brands, but keeps the 20th Century Fox related movie brands? I think that's a possibility, actually. I could definitely see that happening. I really dearly hope that 20th Century Fox sticks around, because it's been my dream, one of my dreams in life that I've been wanting to continue to pursue, is to make a movie, and whether I'm producing it or editing it, I just want to work on a movie that has the 20th Century Fox logo, the CinemaScope logo with the extension to the fanfare, because the extension to that fanfare, it's 20th Century Fox, it's dun 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 dun. That's the standard logo. And then if it's the long version, you get the dun-dun-dun-dun, 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 like Star Wars. They would put that on when a movie is 239 or 235. That was the CinemaScope extension to their logo. I want to make a movie with that logo. It's a dream of mine. A dream of mine. Let's see. I've got to cut this chat short. I can't stay on any longer. I need to do some work. LaPoopy says, hey, Rob, I sent you an email about sending you a Gundam wing kit, but now that I know you're a Mobile Suit Gundam fan, I like to send you, Char's Zabi instead. Don't worry. I have these, and they're collecting dust. Hey, man, I'll take those off your hand if you want. For those of you who don't know, there's something called Gunpla. Actually, there's many different. I really like the metal grade, the metal Gundams. There's different versions of them. I prefer the perfect grade, the 160th scale, but I like 1/100 scale master grade, and then 1/144 scale, especially if they're metal and die cast. But if you send me an email, I will respond to you. But yes, if you go down the Gundam rabbit hole, if you want to build Gundam models, the perfect grade models are the 1/60th scale kits. They're big, they're expensive, they're awesome. Or if you go down the master grade rabbit hole, good luck. It is a rabbit hole. So Captain Robert April says, did you get that verisimilitude graphic I sent you? I don't think so yet. Was it the verisimilitude, the gatekeeper graphic? I don't think it was that one. I haven't seen it yet. I don't know. I'll look for it. Nicholas Glenn says, I missed a chat. Did I miss your chat? Let me see if I missed your chat. I don't mean to miss your chat, Nicholas Glenn. You're right, Nicholas Glenn. I missed your chat. Oh my God, Cobra Kai season 2 trailer's out. I have not seen it. Is that true? I haven't seen it. I got to go look at that. And here's a Stubble McShave chat. I didn't see these chats. I think we'll ever see a Lobo Xmas special movie. I doubt it. I doubt we will ever see a Lobo. We're going to see a Lobo movie. I really think that we will see a Lobo movie, but I don't know if we're ever going to see a Christmas movie. Wow, I did miss a lot of super chats. Factual Opinion says, I just learned of the TNG Bible. Can those rules work? Well, do you mean the Writer's Bible? There's a TNG Writer's Bible that was given to the writer. It was created for the first season of the show. And yes, it does work. I mean, the Bible, that TNG Bible is invaluable. It's also great to read if you're going to be a screenwriter. It's really, really helpful. You can probably find it online. Jeff T says, what up, Rob? Well, see, now I get sucked into these questions. What up, Rob? I've become addicted to omnibus comic book collections. My God, what a friggin' wonderful idea this is. There's a place online called In Stock Trades. We can get them 50% off. Yes. Yes. I'm glad you like omnibuses. I love omnibuses. I've got a lot of them. Many, many, many of them. And they're my favorite. They're my go-to way to read comics. What a way to fritter a Sunday afternoon. One day I hadn't read them, but I had bought all of Ed Brubaker's run on Captain America. I think it was like, I want to say 3 or 4 omnibuses deep. I sat down and read the entire run one Sunday, like for like 8 hours. I just read Brubaker's Captain America run. And that was the whole Winter Soldier run. It went into Secret Invasion. It was awesome. Loved it. Victor Acosta says Dark Horse's Aliens versus Predator comics were the only reason those movies got made, and that's why I could never understand why they didn't use the source material for the screenplays. You and me both, man. You know, because if a screenwriter came in and said, I really want to adapt these comic books, they would have looked at him like he was an idiot. But they should have adapted that. That first series was great. It was great. And I loved it. I thought it was really, really good. GW427 says, the 10 films you bought. Awesome. Okay. The 10 films you bought at the Criterion sale. Wim Wenders' The American Friend, Red River. I have that Red River. So I actually have The American Friend and Red River. State of Siege, Night of the Hunter, Kiss Me Deadly, Secret Sunshine, If, Lindsay Anderson's great If with Malcolm McDowell, Age of Innocence, In the Mood for Love, The Sword of Doom. Oh man, that is a great, you did well, sir. GW, you did well. Those are great. You're going to love those. The Red River set comes with I think it's a book. It's a screenplay or the book. And these are all great films. Every one of these. Sword of Doom is great. They're all good. I'm a big Wim Wenders fan. It's American Friend is the late great Bruno Ganz, who passed away just last month, stars, of course, with Dennis Hopper in An American Friend. What a great movie. Great movie. All right, I think I've got everyone's super chats. If I ever miss your super chats, yell at me and send them, and I'll read them again. And I want to thank Willow Yang for her very thoughtful and very long letter. I appreciate that, Willow, and your continued support. And I also want to thank Mr. Ness, who is out there. Thank you for your letter. Very interesting topic. But again, I think that we always need new and original visions. And I think when people, if you're going to take your idea of growing up in Chicago as a black man living in an ethnically diverse neighborhood and apply that to a spy story, what would that character be like as a spy? Dude, that's the beginning of great storytelling right there. You use your own experience and you extrapolate that into a great spy character. I think the world needs a great international black spy. And of course, Idris Elba, that's why they keep talking about him as being James Bond. And you know what? Wouldn't it be cool? Wouldn't it be cool, actually? I mean, because the problem with Idris Elba is he's a little old to play Bond now, because they'd want him to stick around. I mean, Casino Royale came out in what, 2000 and was it 2006? So by the time we get Bond 25, it's going to be 2020. So you're looking at a 16-year run. And if Idris Elba is as old as he is, I mean, he's going to be almost 60 when he's Bond. And even Roger Moore retired when he was 56 from the role. So they need a younger man. But can you imagine if they did pick a black actor to play James Bond, they could actually introduce the idea that 007, the code name, comes with the James Bond name, comes with it, and they actually establish that all of the Bond films are kind of in continuity. That'd be pretty dope. I mean, that would be a way to get Idris Elba to be James Bond. I mean, I think that would be interesting. And you know what? If they only made, like, Timothy Dalton, if they only made 2 Idris Elba Bond films, and maybe he goes out in a blaze of glory and dies or something, that would be cool. I would totally dig that as a lifelong Bond fan. I think that could really work. Let's see. Anyway, I think I'm going to jump off now. I think I got all your super chats. I want to thank you all for being here. All of you, the members of the Post-Geek Singularity community. I think I'm going to be on John Campia's shows tomorrow. I think. I believe so. I don't know. But if not, then catch up with me tomorrow. I'll be here. I'm also seeing Captain Marvel tomorrow night. I'm very excited. The Cinerama Dome in Hollywood. And I have high hopes. So anyway, you guys, remember, everyone you know has a story to tell you have yet to hear. All you have to do is listen. And with that, my friends, I say good day to you, these members of the Post-Geek Singularity community. I can't wait to hear what you all think of Captain Marvel. I'm sure many of you are going tonight. And with that, I bid you adieu.